Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us today. We've got a brand new story to share with you. So let's begin. You don't marry someone expecting to spend your nights lying awake, running through every little inconsistency in their stories. But that became my reality. There were signs that my wife, Cara, was having an affair. She always had somewhere to be. Errands that took way longer than they should, late-night grocery runs for items we didn't even need, sudden meetups with friends I had never heard of before. Every time I asked about it, she had an answer ready, always calm, always reasonable. But when someone has an excuse for everything, you realize the truth isn't in what they say, it's in what they refuse to say. The biggest red flag was her phone. It was always in her hand or face down on the table, locked with a password I wasn't allowed to know. If she left it unattended for even a second, she'd rush back to grab it like it was a ticking time bomb. She never let me borrow it, not even for something simple like checking the weather. The weirdest part? She deleted everything, every message, every call log, even our own conversations. What kind of married woman needs to wipe her phone clean every single day? I wasn't stupid. I knew something was going on. But knowing and proving are two different things. I thought about hiring a private investigator, but let's be real, those guys cost money, and we weren't exactly swimming in cash. If I wanted answers, I had to find them myself. So I started watching her more closely, looking for patterns, inconsistencies, anything that could confirm what my gut already knew. But she was good. It felt like I was chasing shadows. Cara's secret, however, got exposed in the worst way possible. One evening, a friend sent me a link and asked me to check what he had just seen. I clicked it and my stomach dropped. It was a short, 20-second clip of Cara in an intimate act, naked, moaning, wrapped around another man. At first, I refused to believe it. Later, I understood that her secret lover must have posted it by mistake on Snapchat. It felt like karma had decided it was time. Within minutes, the video spread beyond Snapchat, jumping to leaked sites, gossip forums, and even Twitter. Strangers were reposting it, dissecting it, making jokes about it. The worst part? Some of my own friends had already seen it before I did. I confronted Cara immediately. She was still in denial, pretending she had no idea what I was talking about. I held up my phone, showing her the evidence, and waited. For a moment, she just stared, eyes wide, lips trembling. Then she scoffed and shook her head. "It's Photoshop," she said. "It's fake. Someone is trying to ruin us." I almost laughed. Even now, with the entire world watching, she still thought she could lie her way out of this. "Photoshop," I repeated, my voice eerily calm. "Cara, it's a video." She had no answer for that. She just kept shaking her head, scrambling for excuses. But no amount of lying could change what I had seen. I made my decision in the middle of the chaos. While Cara was still trying to do damage control, I had already contacted a lawyer. I filed for divorce immediately. She tried to talk to me that night, tried to plead, but I wasn't listening. In my mind, she had already become a stranger. Whatever love I had left for her had died the moment I saw that video. The woman I married was gone, and all that was left was someone I didn't recognize. As I began the divorce process, one last question ate away at me. The child I had been raising for 2 years. Was he even mine? I didn't want to believe that Cara could betray me on every level, but the way things were going, I couldn't trust anything anymore. I kept my suspicions to myself while secretly taking the steps to get paternity tests. I collected a few strands of Miles's hair from his baby brush and submitted my own sample. Then I waited. The day the results arrived, I had no idea what to expect. I opened an envelope and read, "Probability of paternity, 0%. I read it again, my brain refusing to accept what my eyes were seeing. Had she known all along? Did it even matter? The damage was done. My marriage was dead. And now, even the one thing I had held on to was gone too. By the time we got to court, I was no longer interested in hearing anything Cara had to say. I presented the DNA test results along with the leaked video as evidence of her infidelity. When the judge looked at me, I could see that he understood. Maybe he had seen this kind of case before, or maybe the devastation in my eyes said everything I couldn't. Either way, He finalized a divorce, and with that, I was legally free from Kara. But Kara, she was furious. She hated what she got in the settlement, but I couldn't care less. She could have taken everything, and I still wouldn't have stayed. At that point, money, property, and assets meant nothing. I had lost something far greater, the life I thought I had. So without another word to her, I walked out of that courtroom, determined never to look back. After the divorce, I couldn't stay in that city. Everywhere I turned, there was a reminder of what Kara had done. I knew if I stayed, it would eat me alive. I didn't want pity. I didn't want people telling me to heal or forgive. I wanted distance. I did the only thing that made sense. I left. I cut off every single person connected to Kara, her friends, her family, even mutual acquaintances. If they knew her, they would never hear from me again. I deleted my social media, changed my number, and packed up what little I cared to take. I didn't leave a forwarding address. As far as that version of me was concerned, I was dead. Starting over wasn't as freeing as people made it sound. Pain doesn't just disappear because you're somewhere else. It follows you, sits in the quiet spaces between your thoughts, and reminds you of everything you lost when you least expect it. I tried to distract myself. I picked up hobbies, forced myself into small talk with neighbors, even made a few friends. But no matter what I did, I was frozen in the past. Love was off the table. I didn't trust myself anymore. I had given my heart to a woman who burned to ashes, and I wasn't about to hand the pieces to someone else. Then I met Lane. She had a sadness in her eyes, one I recognized because I had seen it in the mirror for years. Her husband had died in a car accident, and like me, she was just trying to survive. We didn't rush into anything. We just talked, and for the first time since my divorce, I opened up. She didn't judge. She didn't pity me. She just listened. Years passed, and with Lane, I built a new life. We had a daughter, and when I held her for the first time, I knew I had been given a second chance, a chance to be the father I had once wanted to be, a chance to be whole again. Alone in the house one morning, I had no plans for the day, just a cup of coffee and the silence I had come to appreciate. Then came the knock. I wasn't expecting anyone, but I didn't think much of it as I walked to the door. The moment I swung it open, my breath caught in my throat. A young man stood before me, no older than 20. His posture was tense, his expression unreadable. But that wasn't what froze me in place. It was his face. It was like staring into a mirror of my younger self. For a second, neither of us spoke. Then, in a voice steady but edged with emotion, he said, "Hello, sir. I'm Miles. I've been looking for you." Miles. My mind scrambled for a connection, but the only Miles I had ever known was, no, that wasn't possible. My instincts told me to shut the door, to turn away from whatever this was. But my curiosity, or maybe something deeper, stopped me. Without a word, I stepped aside and let him in. Inside, I moved mechanically, pouring him a cup of coffee while my mind raced. He sat across from me at the kitchen table, watching. I had spent nearly 2 decades burying my past, and now, in the span of minutes, it had come knocking on my door. And worse, it had my face. The silence between us was heavy and suffocating. I didn't know what to say, so I waited for him to speak first. "I've been looking for you for years," Miles said, his fingers gripping the coffee cup like it was the only thing keeping him grounded. "Every penny I made, I put into searching for you." I frowned, confused. "Why?" His eyes met mine. "Because you're my father." I laughed. "No, I'm not." I shook my head. I saw the DNA test. I made peace with that years ago. Miles didn't flinch. Instead, he reached into his bag and pulled out a folder, sliding across the table. His gaze never wavered. "Then read this." Reluctantly, I opened the folder. The first document was a medical report from when Miles was 5 years old. He had needed an emergency blood transfusion, but there had been a problem. His blood type didn't match the man he had been calling Dad. Confused, the doctors ordered a DNA test. The results were undeniable. The man wasn't his father. I flipped through more pages. As he grew older, Miles had done multiple DNA tests, trying to make sense of it all. Each one confirmed the same thing. I was his biological father. I stared at the papers, my vision blurring. This couldn't be real. It couldn't. But the proof was right there in my hands. I don't believe this, I muttered, pushing the papers away. You can leave now. Miles stayed still, locking eyes with me. Then he said, please don't leave me again. I wanted to say no. I wanted to tell him to walk out that door and never come back. But something about him made me pause. Fine, I said, my voice hollow. One last test. But if it says you're not mine, I don't want to see you ever again. Miles nodded, his expression unreadable. Deal. The next morning, we went to the best lab in the city. There should be no room for doubt. I watched as they collected our samples. The results were ready the next day. I opened the envelope when I got it, my eyes scanning the paper. The words blurred together for a second before snapping into focus. Probability of paternity, 99.99%. The paper slipped from my hands. I had abandoned my own son for 18 years.